Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and I read 15 books in the month of July, so let's talk about them. I can tell you right now, this is not going to happen again in August. We'll talk about my August reading plans at the end of this video, but I did read quite a few books that I loved, quite a few books just in general, so let's talk about them. First off, starting at the beginning of this month, I was doing Summerween, and so these first several books are all from my Summerween reading. If you want to see my full Summerween vlog, I will link it. I'll just give you kind of like the brief rundown on my thoughts on these books. Starting with a very short one. This is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Stetson. I feel like there's different names depending on what version you're looking at, but this is a horror short story. It's like 30 pages about this woman who basically is slowly descending into madness. I thought it was good, not great. It just was one of those things that I feel like was a very interesting concept, but because it was a short story, it just didn't feel fleshed out. It didn't feel complete. And I felt like I was left hanging a little bit. So I think I would have loved this concept if it were a full novel. I think it would have been really interesting. They could have done a lot more with this concept and I would have eaten it up. I liked her writing a lot, but I just needed a lot more in order to feel really satisfied with this storyline. And then I read Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is also horror book with, it's not dual timelines, but sort of. So you're following this boy in present day who thinks he killed his roommate. He's not 100% sure, but he's pretty sure he did. And he basically runs away to live with his dad in Japan, where his dad just moved. And he starts seeing this ghost in the house. And we then get the point of view of the ghost. And it is this girl who is living in, I can't remember exactly what the time frame is, but she's like, it's the end of the age of the samurai, and her dad is like one of the final samurai, and they strike a deal to kind of help each other out, and things get a little weird from there. I really enjoyed this book. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. It's one of those things that, I don't know, the ending's maybe a little up to the reader to decide how they think things fully turned out. I respect that as an ending. I don't know that I enjoyed it as an ending, if that makes sense. So I really was just so invested in these characters that I just wanted a happy ending. And so ending with something kind of ambiguous was a little bit of a struggle for me because I was very invested, which I think like mad props to this author for getting me so invested in the characters in a horror book like that. I don't know. I feel like when you're reading horror or mysteries in general, like you don't necessarily always get super connected to the characters. Sometimes it's just, I don't know, especially when you're like, well, any of these could be the suspect or could be the murderer. You just kind of don't necessarily get a super connected to characters, but I was very connected to the main characters and I just wanted a happy ending and I can't tell if I got it or not. So that is Japanese Gothic. Definitely would be interested in reading more by this author. I thought this book was great. So check it out if you like horror. Definitely like look up trigger warnings if you need to. There's like a lot of really intense stuff that happens in this book, but overall, I thought it was very well done. And then I read All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slatter, and I loved this one too. This one is a fantasy book about this family who has this like long-standing deal with the merfolk, and they kind of have quit upholding their end of the deal for years, and so their family has kind of dropped into ruin, and our main character's grandma decides to make one final bid to try and save the family at the cost of our main character, and she kind of decides that she is not chill with that, and it leads into this whole thing. This one has some great Gothic vibes, some very fun folklore that are worked into it. So many creatures that I think were just so well written and fun. And I had a great time. I think my only real complaint about this book is there was a couple scenes that were maybe a little more than fade to black on like the spice end of things, but overall, I think it was like, it wasn't beyond what I could like skim and be fine with. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's more books in this world written by this author, so I definitely need to get some of them potentially on my like fall TBR because really liked this world. It's very like cold, stormy seas, Gothic vibes. Would recommend. And then I read a book that is a totally different vibe. I read Of Monsters and Mainframes, which I feel like so many people read this book. This is by Barbara Truelove. This is like a kind of silly sci-fi book about this spaceship who gets to port. Well, it's like the AI that runs the spaceship, and it gets to port and realizes that all of its passengers are dead, and it was maybe Dracula. And then it goes down this whole crazy thing with a bunch of different classic, like Halloween creatures, different monsters that they run into. It was an enjoyable read. I don't know that I would consider this like a new favorite or like I'm going to be raving about this book. I think a lot of other people seem to be loving it a bit more than I do. I don't know. Like I can get the hype, but I also don't know that I feel like it should be that hype. Like it was a fun book. Don't get me wrong. I didn't have anything like against it. I just don't know that it was doing anything super mind blowing for me. But if you just want like a silly, quick, lighthearted book, Of Monsters and Mainframes. And then I finally read a physical book. All of those I read through Libby, but I read The Devil in the Marshalsea by Antonia Hodgson. This one was another one that I feel kind of middle of the road about. It is a historical mystery, I guess, following this guy who ends up in debtor's prison, and then somebody dies, and he kind of gets tasked with solving the murder. It was good. I liked the plot. I didn't necessarily fully enjoy the characters or the writing. Is kind of where I'm sitting at. This is my second book I've read by this author, and the first one I had a lot of the same problems with. I feel like it took me so long to get into the book, and I really disliked the characters for the first 50% of the book, and then they finally start to grow on you a bit, but I just already at that point was kind of like, meh. I don't know if I really care what's going on. The mystery plotline was really well done. I liked the twists, I liked where it wrapped up, but the whole environment, the writing, I just like couldn't get into it. Like if I thought about that mystery plotline separate from the book, really interesting, really good. Within the context of the book, I didn't love it so much. Very crude writing, which there's a whole author's note at the beginning about how that is like historically accurate to these characters and stuff, which like fine, sure, but it just was a little much for me personally. So I don't know. I will not be continuing this series. It is a at least trilogy, I think. There might be more. I don't really remember. I haven't looked too much into it, but won't be continuing it, but I'm not like mad that I read it. And then I listened to an audiobook. This is Alcatraz versus the Scrivener's Bones. This is book 2 in the Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarian series by Brandon Sanderson. This is a kid series, so keep that in mind, but very enjoyable. I again listened to this one, and this was my first time ever listening to a graphic audio production of an audiobook. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Very overstimulating at times, but I can see how this would be great for like kids. It has like lots of music and sound effects and things like that, and I felt like just a little too much going on at times. But overall, it was fine. Like I had a good time. I do really love the Alcatraz books. The audiobook is what I feel a little hit and miss on. The book, really enjoyed it. Solid kids book. This is I don't even know how to describe it. Basically, what it sounds like. Librarians are like evil in this world, and they have like this regime where they have like been feeding everyone false information. So like we're on Earth, but there's also like all of these continents in the middle of the ocean that just like aren't on our maps if you live in the like hush lands where the librarians are in control. And so then you're following these people who are like fighting against the evil librarians, and they have magical powers, it feels like, but according to the people who to people who grew up in the hushlands, it seems like magic, but to the people who grew up with it, it's like science, right? It's a technology. So not really sure how to explain that one, but really great. If you've got kids, for sure read them. I'm kind of like halfway book clubbing this with my nephews. My sister is reading them, the series, and we're moving at about the same rate. So I get to talk to my nephews about these books. They are really enjoying them. If you've got kids, highly recommend Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. And then I finished up some books for one of my Around the World in Books videos, which is already up, so I will link it. I'd read the first couple books before I started my summer ween, so then I went through and finished them up. So there's just 2, but this is The Madwoman of Serrano by Dina Salustio, translated by Jethro Sutar. This one is about this fictional country city. I'm not really sure what I think it's a city called Serrano, and we're following this little, I guess, village. Village is the right word. There we go. And a whole cast of characters, one of which is the woman who's been like labeled as the Madwoman in the town. And I don't know, the title's a little misleading because I feel like you don't actually spend that much time with the Madwoman. Like, she's not a super major character. We're mostly following this one family. The dad who, when he was like a young man, he found this girl in the woods who was injured and pregnant. And so she has a baby and he basically adopts the kid. So then you're following the kid as she's off living her life. It becomes this whole intertangled web of characters. It's a lit fic, so it's really hard to explain what the plot is. But I did enjoy this one. I thought it had some very interesting conversations that were brought up. I thought the writing was well done. Overall, just like a good read. It's not a new favorite, but I really enjoyed it. And then I read a nonfiction book. This is Spirit Rising, My Life, My Music by Angelique Kidjo. This is her memoir about her music career, which was very fascinating. I knew nothing about her. I've never heard of her before. But she wrote all about like her childhood, getting into music, moving to France and going to music school, and then developing this whole career and albums. And it was really good. I think there was a lot of very interesting things in here. I thought she picked the things that, like, the storyline was very engaging the entire time. I don't feel like I ever got bogged down by like stuff that didn't seem super important. You know, I feel like sometimes memoirs do that where you're like, we got sidetracked a little bit here. But she kept it very tailored down to her music career. She's had a very interesting life. And then at the end, you get a little bit of information about her being a UNICEF ambassador and just kind of all the things that she's doing with her life. So really good memoir. If you're looking for a good nonfiction, would recommend. And then I picked up a book called The Hallows by H.L. Tinsley. This is one that I have literally never seen anywhere. I got it by mistake from my in-laws. We were looking for a different book, accidentally misspelled something, got this one. And I'm so happy we did because I really enjoyed this book. It's self-published, so it's not like a book that you can find just anywhere. But I think it was on Amazon. I highly enjoyed this one. It is such an interesting world. You're following, it's really hard to explain. Essentially this world where you have the equivalent of the Catholic Church. Like, that's the closest equivalent I can think of. But there's like magic involved with it and they like help do that. But there's this like certain serum that can make it so that people with bloodlines from these ancient creatures can like manifest powers if you take the serum, but it has really horrible negative effects if you take too much. And so it has to be heavily monitored. And the church has turned into essentially this like large pharmaceutical company around this drug in order to make sure that people aren't like overusing and dying from it. And then you start to see some suspicious deaths pop up, and we are following this one little crew of people. They're called assessors. There's like the whole city is divided into like regions, and they are in charge of just kind of monitoring things with the serum in their area. And so we're following primarily one group of these assessors as they try to figure out what is going on with some of these suspicious deaths. And then it just takes turn after turn that you were not expecting, and it gets kind of crazy. Really fun. If you want things with like nuns that are acting as like bodyguards and like very like a lot of like found family, if you love that kind of a vibe. I had a great time with this one. There were some things that I felt like were a little rough on like the editing side of things, where just like scenes felt like they got skipped a little bit, and I wish we could have seen more on certain things. But for the most part, really enjoyed this book. We'll definitely be looking into, I think this author has a few other books, so we'll be looking into them. I had a great time with this one. If you're looking for a book that just like super unique, I can't think of anything really that I would like compare it to. The Hallows. The next book I finished was Woodworm by Leila Martinez. This is a horror, somewhere in between a novel and a short story. Like, it was short, but it's still like a full-length story, I feel like. Maybe it wasn't as short as I was thinking it was. It felt short. But essentially you're following this grandma and her granddaughter who live in this house that is like semi-sentient, maybe haunted, and they've got some interesting relationships with like the surrounding city. And then a boy goes missing and suspicion gets put on them, and they end up having to team up with whatever's going on with the house in order to figure it out, essentially. Which is like kind of how the book is described on the back. I feel like it's mostly accurate. You're getting a lot of like lore about the family and their history and the different people they've got beef with and stuff like that. But it was good. I feel like the horror elements were really lacking for this being like a horror book. They were there, but they just didn't feel that freaky. And I don't know. I'm still a little undecided on how I feel about this book. Very middle of the road. I can't decide if I liked it or not. Kind of a book. I'd be interested to know if anyone else has read it. What are your thoughts on this one? Then I finished another audiobook. This is Masquerade in Lodi by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is book 9 in the Penrick and Desdemona series, and I had a great time with this one. This whole thing is a series of novellas, and it's set in this author's like larger world, the world of the five gods, but it's kind of like a spin-off series. I have not read the main series and I definitely need to, but you're following Penrick, who accidentally gets himself possessed by a demon, and all the adventures that they go on. And the demon is like an entity inside of him. It's very Venom-esque where you have like this creature that he can like talk to and stuff, but it's like this demon inside of him. And this one, they like get called in because they find this boy who got like washed up on shore. Some fishermen found him or something, and he has no memories, and Penrick and his demon are trying to help figure out who this guy is. And it's just a fun time. I love the Penrick and Desdemona series. All of them are just like quick little fun reads, and I would highly recommend. The one thing that does get confusing in the series though is she wrote them like not in chronological order. So if you're following the publication order, you will have like random time jumps back and forth. So I don't know. The trick is she's still writing the books, so it's a little hard to try and read them in chronological order because they're not done. So you never know, like you still might miss something. So I've just been reading them in publication order and just accepting that sometimes there's like a weird confusing time jump that you have to like figure out when this happened. And then I read another kid's book. This is Chasing Vermeer by Blue Balliot. This is a like kids mystery where you're following these two kids who like a Vermeer painting goes missing and they decide to try and solve it. There's this whole complicated thing. I thought this one was good. I think this would be great if you have a kid that's really into puzzles and stuff. The problem that I had just trying to read it like as a novel that I could just go and read through in like a couple hours was there's quite a few puzzles in there that you are like expected to solve on your own as the reader, and it kind of takes you out of the story if you're just trying to read it through as a book. But if you were like reading like a chapter a night before bed and you had a kid that's really into solving puzzles and wanted to like figure out the codes and stuff on their own, would be a really good one for that situation. But I had a good time still. I just was a little bit annoyed that I was having to like go and flip back to the beginning of the book to like decode these letters and stuff. Things like that. The next one that I finished was Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. This one is good. It's the sequel to Kill a Mockingbird, and it's not as good. I will say that the first book is definitely better, just stronger in general. I felt like most of this book I was a little checked out until I got to the very end, and then I like kind of got engaged. Like the conversations that happened at the very end of this book I thought were interesting, but I feel like it took a long time to get there, and I wasn't really enjoying myself up to that point. But you've got quite a time gap. Scout is now 26. She's come back home from where she's living in New York, and she's basically just trying to deal with the fact that she's kind of grown up to the point where she's not really having a lot of the same opinions. She's moved to the north at a time when we're obviously still having like all the civil rights things going on, and her family's still in the south, and she's got some different views on things than they do, and she's kind of grappling with that. Good, not amazing, definitely not as good as the first one. The audiobook is good. I listened to all of this book. I think I listened to all of it. It's narrated by Reese Witherspoon, so good audiobook if you're looking for just like something to kind of listen to in the background. I thought it was well done. And then I read Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is the second book in the Red Rising trilogy. I know everybody loves these books. I don't really get the hype. I just find the characters so annoying. And I think my biggest issue with these books is I feel like the plot just is going in circles and circles and circles, and I just want us to make some progress at some point. If you don't know, this is like a sci-fi series where humanity's like colonized Mars. There's like this pretty strict caste system, and we're following a guy from the lowest caste. He's from like the Reds, and all of the things that he gets up to. I don't want to spoil the first book in order to talk about this, but it goes a totally different direction. But I feel like this book's plot is just very cyclical, I guess. I just feel like we are back at square one constantly. Like, we just cannot seem to make any progress on what is going on, and I just am so annoyed with it. I'm so sick. I just want them to make some progress. Like, we are back to just like the starting point by the end of this book, and it's bugging me. So I'm gonna give this series one more book. I'll finish like the original trilogy, however people want to do that, and we'll see how I'm feeling at that point. I might just end up DNFing the series after that, because I am getting really sick of it. So I need something to like move us forward into a different plot line where we're not just like rehashing the same mistakes over and over again, for me to start enjoying these books more. It's a good book. I just am so annoyed with it. So yeah, that's Golden Sun. Not my favorite. I think the writing's fine, but I am annoyed with the plot. And then the final book that I read in July is a nice little short one. This one is Edgedancer by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella in the Stormlight Archive, which is like the Way of Kings, those big books. There are some little novellas. This one is specifically following Lift, if you've read those books. My husband actually skipped the novella, but I was like, I'm reading the novella, and I'm so glad I did. I really like Lift. My big issue with the Stormlight Archive is there are a lot of characters that I don't love in those books. Lift, really enjoying. She is 100% motivated by food. That is all she cares about. And she's like become a thief just so she can break in and like eat fancy people's breakfast. That's like her whole motivation. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go break into the palace so I can eat the emperor's dinner. And she's so funny. I really, really like Lift. So this one was a very good time. Definitely like a 5-star. Loved it. It does set up some stuff. And like there's an author's note at the end where Brandon Sanderson like explains why he wrote this novella and why he thought it was important between the books. So would recommend. I had a great time with this one. And that is everything that I read in July. So let's talk about my August reading plans, because I definitely am going to read less books, but I'll still be reading a lot. First of all, on the list is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This one has gone a lot of hype online, and I wanted to know what the hype was about. So full transparency, I have already finished this book. It is August 5th when I'm filming this, so I have finished this one. I will give you my thoughts in my August wrap up, but it has been read. This one is like Gothic fantasy. I feel like is probably the best explanation for that, about this girl who has a monster trapped in her head, which I do love a good monster trapped in people's bodies, as we can see with my love for Penric. And then there's a really interesting magic system with like cards and stuff like that. Thoughts to come. That will be in a video, and then it will be in my August wrap up. So keep your eye out for that. The next one on my TBR is The Traitor's Game by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This author is actually from my hometown, so kind of fun. I don't know a ton about this one. We'll just read the back. Kestra Dallasor has spent the last 3 years in exile, but that does not stop her from being drawn back into the web of her father's dangerous politics. He's second in command in the, how do you say this, despotic? That's a word I've only ever read. And seemingly immortal King Lord Endric. With his arsenal of Ironheart soldiers and vicious condors, Endric rules the land of Antora with a cruel and bloody fist. Her father's position makes Kestra a valuable bargaining chip, which a group of rebels understands all too well, and they snatch Kestra from her carriage as she reluctantly travels home. The kidnappers want her to retrieve the Olden Blade, a lost dagger they believe is the only weapon that can kill the power-mad king. But Kestra is not the obedient captive they expected. One of the rebels, Simon, struggles to fulfill his orders as Kestra attempts to foil their plans by any means necessary. As motive shifts and secrets emerge, both Simon and Kestra will have to question what it is and who it is they're fighting for. So it sounds like basically your standard YA fantasy book. Not gonna lie. But we'll see. Hopefully it'll be good. And then a very small one that I've had on my shelf for a while that I just need to read is A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. I have read by this author before. I read The Starling House. This one is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty involving potentially like some time traveling something or other. I don't know. It'll just be a good short read, I think. It's technically a series, so we'll see. I'm a little unsure if I'm going to love this one or not, just based off of some stuff I've heard about it, but I just need to like get it off my physical TBR. So I need to read it and then decide if I'm keeping it and continuing the series or if I'm just getting rid of it. And then part of the reason I picked such a short book for my physical TBR is because I also am hoping to read Oathbringer this month. I finished Edgedancer. Obviously, that was the next thing I needed to read before I could jump into this. It has been like a full year since I read the second book. This is book 3 in the Stormlight Archive. I do not even know how to begin to describe to you what the series is about. It's a massive epic fantasy book following so many things and so many characters. I am hopeful about this book. Some of my favorite characters were pretty much completely absent from the second book, and it made me really sad, and I was not having a great time with that one. But based off of something that happens at the end of that second book, I think I'm going to see a lot more of my favorite characters in here. I'm also hoping we get more Lift. She was in the novella as like the main character. I'm hoping we see her some more in this book. So I'm having a positive attitude that maybe I will like this one more. Stormlight Archive hasn't been my favorite so far. I just feel like they're a little too long and I'm a little too sick of the characters and the plot is taking a little too long to develop into something that is like followable. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm hopeful about this one. I think we're making progress towards a plot that actually makes sense, and I think my favorite characters are going to be more prominent in this book. So hopefully, because this is a lot of pages. It's so big. Let's see. And like I read big books often. It's not usually an issue for me. But this one is like 1,250 pages. It's a chunky one. And then a couple books that I don't own yet that I want to read. First of all, I have this one out from Libby, so I need to get to it soon. This is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. This one, I also don't know a ton about what it's about. I believe it's a fantasy book. Clearly, I've done my research. Let's see. It's a retelling of a classic Korean folktale. So yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty happy to go into this one not really knowing anything except that people seem to like it. So I'm going to give it a try. And I feel like oceany, watery books are good for summer. So as we're like finishing up summer reading, it feels like a good one to go ahead and check off my list. And then I also want to read The Night Country. This is the second book, like the sequel to The Hazelwood. Dark fairy tales vibes. I haven't really ever seen anyone talk about the second book. I don't know why, because I feel like the first book feels so unfinished at the end. So I don't know. I have a lot of questions. I really hope they get answered, and I'm going to be very disappointed if they don't. So I'm a little nervous going into this one because I have some pretty strong opinions on what I want this book to be, and I'm not sure it's going to be that. So I might be setting myself up for some disappointment there, but I am going to read it this month. And then the final books that I have, I won't list out all the books, but I am I want to do another of my Around the World in Books videos this month. This time I will be focusing on Oceania and some of the countries there. So I have the books picked. I just need to get them and then I can read them. So that is my August TBR. Lots of reading plans. It is less books than I read last month, but it might be just as many pages by the time you include this book. So that's what's going on. And we're just going to end the video here. So let me know what your thoughts are on if you've read any of these books, if you have any recommendations for me. I'm always looking for books that aren't like just the same books that everybody's reading. But I also sometimes have FOMO and just want to know why everybody's raving about certain books. But I am regularly let down by like the really viral books. So, you know. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.